are. We are.
It's relatively informal and kind of a roundtable. There is a very nominal agenda. This is what the budget committee asked for, is this next step of meeting, catching up, and talking about, what it looks like in the future and what we can do. So it'll be semi-staff led, so all of you can just do what you need to do and think, talk, and give us great input.
Yeah, so again, the idea behind these meetings is to share information with you from the staff level, give you an opportunity to kick it around a little bit, and then as a result, be better prepared when we go into budget committee meetings when they start in April, March, April, whenever y'all decide to start. So,
And we'll take, I'm sorry, I can't help myself. I don't know what I'm gonna do when he retires, so I'm gonna be finance director.
you'll be in charge all the time.
True. And we will take all of the information from this and compile it, and many of you are on the council, but we'll bring this to the council as well. So that the full council and the community can hear some of these discussions, summaries of this discussion.
So that way you'll hear it 3 times, because most of you on council have already heard most of this information once in my quarterly reports.
Yeah, but it's better this time.
Yeah, because you went through and edited it. Credit.
Well, so maybe
She's
this
big on
time
credit.
it'll stick.
So feel free to, I'll do like a little piece of this and then we can have conversation or discussion and however y'all want to do this. If you want to wait till the end or kick it around, I don't care. So gonna start out first with just a little bit of a conversation about the general fund in general. We have revenues in so we're gonna talk about 24-25 unless I tell you otherwise, okay? So for 24-25 unaudited, we haven't made year-end adjustments yet. We're working on those. Revenues in the general fund are down a bit versus what was budgeted. And some of this will be addressed in the year-end adjustments. We've got some accruals to make. But remember that we'll be down that $300,000 reduction in the transfer from the Urban Renewal Agency this year. Okay. And just going through the budget to actuals, they're pretty much where we kind of expected them to be. Without going into great detail, I mean, the general fund kind of is where we all know where it is, right? And I'll have some more comments here in a little bit about specific pieces of that. The tourism and entertainment fund. Yeah, I always do that. Tourism and entertainment, tourism and events fund. It looks like, just a quick summary of the Independence Days. It looks like we had revenue right around 260,000. And expenses as of kind of today of 187,000. And that includes staff allocations for a net of about 73,000. Now we do have some more expenses coming in. We had a check run last week that we captured some of those expenses, but there's still some P-card stuff, purchasing card stuff that's rolling in. So my guess is there'll be another $10,000–12,000 of expenses against that. Does that sound about right?
Nice balance.
So that's a very, very successful instance.
Especially since we went from 3 days to 2 days, but that 3rd day was free last year, so maybe it's not that big a difference.
Well, there's no staff time on a free day though, right?
Correct.
So there you go. That's what I got on P&E. We do have, well, I'll talk about the lodging tax here in a minute. The Urban Renewal Projects Fund. What we did this year, 24-25 and going forward, is we've adjusted the property tax splits between those two funds. They were 75% to the debt service fund, 25% to the projects fund. That made sense for a while when we were making transfers from the debt service fund to the projects fund, but there's this little thing called budget law that makes it illegal to make transfers out of a debt service fund because it's restricted money. That was many moons ago that occurred, so the last few years, it's just been building a balance. So we've adjusted the property tax revenues so that they're flowing more evenly between the two funds, so that they line up with the payments that each of those funds have to make. Again, we're still looking at a cash deficit in the projects fund that we talked about before. Over the next 3 years, that will resolve. Making the changes that we made in terms of reducing the transfer to the general fund. Once we're back on track, then those more full payments can resume and we'll get where we need to be, I think, within a year of when we were originally projected to get there. Does that make sense? Everybody still with me? Good. So some trend information, utility billing. So utility billing receivables for water, sewer, and stormwater at June 30th, 25 were 750,000, give or take. This is up a little bit from the prior year as a result of the switch to the tiered rates and the rate increases that we had. So I would expect them to be up a little bit. We're right in line with where we have been in prior years in terms of the percentage of that balance that is current versus delinquent. No real change or shift there, which I'm happy about that. If we had also seen an increase in the delinquent portion of that balance, then I'd be concerned because it's going up and coming in later.
Right.
But I really don't have any concerns. We watch this every month and watch for like shifts in the trends. So it is about 84% current. So there's about a 16% delinquency, and I'm calling anything over 30 days delinquent. So it drops off pretty rapidly after the 30 to 60 days. Residential accounts make up about 84% of that receivable balance. So the rest is commercial, industrial.
Is that in line with what it's been in prior years?
Uh-huh. Yeah, very little shift there. Maybe a percentage point month to month. Payments received in a given month as a percentage of the amount billed in that same month are averaging about 96%. So we're collecting about 96% of what we bill. Now, some months we see that over 100% because they're paying past due balances. It's difficult to work with anything other than the totals because you really have to get the weeds to figure out that. But real happy again with the collections coming in terms of it being consistent year over year. There is the seasonality. We do see the collections rate dip a little bit in the hottest months of the summer. That's also when we see our largest billings, obviously. And it tends to catch up in the winter months.
I'm just curious, are the delinquents primarily customers who pay cash or check? Because mine's automatic, I mean.
Yeah, I don't have that information. I'm not sure that we capture it that way. I can check.
I don't think it's worth you're doing the
Okay.
exercise to check it out, I was just curious about it.
No, it's a good question.
I mean, I would have to go in and change my allotment in order to not pay my bill, so I don't know if people are doing that, but. The more we can move people towards that payment,
Yeah.
it's helpful.
Property taxes. So as you might expect, property tax revenues are like within 1% of where we budget them. It's not hard to budget property taxes. It's not rocket science. The only thing that'll throw you way off is if there's some sort of a big adjustment by the tax assessor during the year that we didn't count on. And that clearly wasn't the case. So we total about $2.7 million in the general fund and about 1.1 million in urban renewal. And that's before year-end accruals. There'll be a little bit of an adjustment in July. And again, as you know, both of those amounts are limited by the 3% statutory limit on assessed value growth. So that's why it's not hard to project this stuff. Lodging taxes, total lodging tax revenue for 24-25 came in at about 241,000. Again, there will be an no, that's after the adjustment. I already made that adjustment for this year. This is an increase of about 62,000 or 35% over the prior year. We did pick up some new like bed and breakfast, Airbnb, VRBO stuff this year. Clearly the big driver is the hotel. And we have seen increases in occupancy in the last few months there, so that's contributing to that as well. Nothing really special beyond that. The public safety fee. Well, guess what? It came in just as exactly as we projected because it was the math was mathing on that. It was pretty easy to figure out what it should be, and it came out at about $480,000 for the 6 months. We're projecting at the $17 a month rate. We're projecting about $816,000 for 25-26.
Which, as you remember, goes into effect July 1st, 2025.
Yeah, so we're already seeing at that reduced rate for our billings now. Talk a little bit about personnel services, wages and benefits. 2024-25, we saw about a 4.5% COLA across staff and step increases for those employees who are eligible for them. And there were some vacancy savings in finance, police, and the museum with personnel changes that occurred there. 25-26, we implemented a 2.5% COLA with the July payroll as budgeted. And the finance department, so catch you up a little bit on what's going on in the finance department, and then Kenna can talk about other if she wants to. So we budgeted for a full year of a finance manager position for 25-26. As you know, that position is vacant, has been for some time. We also budgeted me in the finance director position through December. And we budgeted the new finance director from December through the end of the year. So there'd be a month overlap. So there's a little bit of extra budget in there for that. Because we've been unsuccessful in our recruiting for the finance manager position to date, we had an intern start with us, someone who recently graduated from Blue, and she's a rock star. I mean, she's 3 months out of school. I've known her for a total of like 3 weeks now, but she has exhibited some qualities that I'm really, really happy about. She's an independent thinker. She does have an accounting degree. She has shown an ability to learn, and she's self-motivated. So, I mean, for an example, I gave her a journal entry. I said, when you finish this one, I'll come back and we can kind of talk about the second one and work through that, thinking that I would walk her through several. I got busy doing something, and after an hour, I thought, oh crap, I forgot to check on her. So I went in there. She goes, well, I did all the journal entries and I've started on the bank rec. Is that okay? Like, yeah. And her work is quality. I mean, I found very few mistakes, and she asked questions. So what we did is we actually hired her on a limited duration full-time as an accountant one. So we're underfilling that finance manager position. So there's some savings generated there that you know, based on where we end up with recruiting for my position and whatever else we want to do, there may be some room to do some things there.
But we won't know that till after the finance director position still.
Yes.
You know, if we've got anything left.
Right.
Is that a full-time position?
Yeah, she is.
And it is limited duration, so it's through the fiscal year.
Right, she's only here through June 30th. And then depending on how budgets look and stuff, the new finance director can make whatever decisions he or she wants to make. But she's really happy about it. She was managing a coffee shop in Dallas and is thrilled to be using her degree and learning. And this will give her, even if the position ends in June, it'll give her some experience and a head start towards finding another position.
And the alternative, you could extend a job offer to her. That's
Sure.
pending.
Yeah, depending on what y'all want to do. But that's what's going on in the finance department. We're a relatively inexperienced group right now, outside of me and Niley. But we're getting there. We're not, if you'd had talked to me 2 weeks ago, I was feeling pretty behind. But I feel like we're on a good path right now, so. Okay, so inflation. We based our inflation, our materials and services budgets on a 2.5% factor for 25-26. We budgeted that. That seems to be falling in line with the CPIU, which is kind of what our benchmark is. That's also our benchmark for the COLAs, which is how we ended up with the 2.5% COLA. So I think we're right in line there. General fund balance. This is where my daughter would tell me, Dad, if the horse is dead, just get off. But the general fund budgeted an estimated beginning fund balance for 25-26, as you know, of about 476,000. You don't need me to tell you again, but I will. That's about 1.4 million short of where we should be. Budgeted fund balance at the end of 25-26 is 760,000, so it's a little better. My comment here is again, the city should continue to work on increasing that fund balance until they get it to a stable place. And the only way to do that, to build fund balance, is to spend less than you bring in any given year, which means looking at new revenues, levies, fees, or continuing to have to make cuts, or likely some combination of the two. And we talked about that at great length as a budget committee. We're not going to cut our way out of this mess. We're going to have to grow our way out of it too. And I wish Erin was here, because that was an insightful moment, I thought, in those meetings when she was able to actually articulate that. Debt summary. The city continues to make its scheduled debt service payments on all outstanding obligations. We're not in danger of falling behind on any of that stuff. The only external debts paid by the general fund are the mortgage on the museum building. Mortgage, it's not truly a mortgage, but
it's how we all understand it.
Right. And the transfer to the Urban Renewal Agency for our share of the ICC bonds, the bonds on this building. Interfund loans. No new interfund loans. There's a great pleasure to say that. The interfund loans from the Urban Renewal Agency Projects Fund to other funds of the city are being paid as scheduled, except to the general fund, as we talked about. General fund payments were reduced by the $300,000. In the event that the properties that are held by the Urban Renewal Agency, those 3 properties that y'all have been talking about, if those are sold, those monies can be used to pay down the debt to the general fund.
Well, how aggressively are those properties being, I guess, advertised?
So
That would be a question
Yeah.
for my illustrious city, the phenomenal city manager from the city of Independence.
The exceptional chemicals.
Okay.
Inside joke there.
Take a bow.
No, please.
Right now, not. We were going to do a URA work session tomorrow to
Right.
talk about if you wanted to market them, just sell them, done. Or if you wanna look at doing a package for development purposes. It's a balancing act, it's a.
So that question is for another meeting.
Yes, but feel free to start thinking about what you might wanna do, cause it is gonna be a work session.
Right.
But unfortunately, we're not sure Sean will be back, so we'll have to push it off. Once we do get a realtor on board, depending on what the council decides, we're going to push out the sales. Cause these one-time sales are going to help whatever fund they go into. It's just a determination of what it's going to look like, so. High enough level, but in the weeds enough? Yeah. Okay.
That gives me a look down the road.
Yes.
There you go. And then finally, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on our fee study that we're working on in the finance department. I promised you that we would begin that project, that we would wrap it up and bring a recommendation to the council before I left. We're about 30 days behind on that, but we still believe we can bring it to council in November.
So you're saying through January, is that what I'm
You
hearing?
know, it's funny that you can think that.
Worse with the math.
Yeah, it's cute how you think that. No, but so we've begun looking at. No, but, we've begun looking at the comprehensive fee resolution to, kind of figure out our scope. We're looking at the cost of providing services such as planning and engineering inspections. We're meeting with department heads this week to get a feel for, how long it takes to process a subdivision application, for example. And then that gives us a starting place for at least cost recovery. But we're also gonna consider our comparables. We've got a list of comparables, and Chelsea, our new accountant, has done a really nice job of pulling together comps from all of the cities that we identified. And we're able to kind of compare and contrast across, and that will be a factor, as well as cost of service and whatever other market influences there are. And then you all as a council will have an opportunity to overlay that with your philosophy on growth. I've worked both sides of that. I had a client who they said, we're gonna do it based on cost of service. We put together a recommendation for them to cover cost of service, and they reduced their fees because they wanted to encourage growth. That's fine. Also, when I was working for the city of Wilsonville many, many moons ago, I had a pretty aggressive city manager there. She makes you look like a child.
Wow. Very impressive. Goodness gracious.
We called her the Queen of Chaos, but anyways, Arlene Lobel, some of you may have heard her name, but Arlene she said, we take the cost of service and then we're gonna mark it up because we're Wilsonville, we can. Because there was that much demand for people coming into Wilsonville, and they made a crap ton of money on development fees.
And the I-5 backup proves it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what, and there's nothing wrong with it, it's a market-based thing, and that's the way they chose to approach it. So, and there's everything in the middle. So we'll give you the information. We will make some recommendations based on cost of service. And we're also gonna recommend that maybe some of these fees go away, like, I don't know, the licensing for the cigarette vending machines. I mean, Chelsea looked at me and she goes, what is that? And I said, well, you used to be able to put a quarter in a vending machine, pull a thing and cigarettes.
Casino has them, I saw.
She's like, one cigarette?
Yeah.
Whole thing.
Hold back.
So she's so.
No, she's just young.
She's young.
We remember gas under $1.
How do you? And then, like I said, we're collecting comparables and be able to bring that stuff back to you. We look forward to that's really all the information I had prepared. So, I mean, if there are questions that y'all wanna ask, we can work on bringing information back to the October meeting. We're really just here to help you kind of direct a conversation amongst yourselves. I don't know if you want to add. Really?
Nothing, did great, Counselor Soros.
I think one of the things for that advice for a future meeting, I'd appreciate some market information too, with the changing, everyday changing dynamics of financing available and the economy. I'm a big concerned if we say we wanna grow, and we slate our fees for growth, but then the bottom drops out because of the economy. You know, we have a president who's seems to be trying to artificially mess with finance rates and all that stuff. So I'm concerned about additional information on market rate, market kind of dynamics and other things to help us influence that decision. That we could be exposing the city.
That would be a good thing to add in when we have work sessions that have to do with setting rates and so on, because we don't get a lot of market information.
We could be making a decision with not the best information.
So are you thinking statewide, or regional, the valley?
I guess
Yes.
I'll defer to smarter people than me on that stuff, so maybe you can talk to folks like Set4 and things like that around what's the best evidence, but I know, for example, Salem, they got stuck kind of just putting a pause on all sorts of development during the Great Recession because they approved all these things and then no one could get financing. So then they just said, let's pause, and then when everyone got financing, all of West Salem was built all at once, right? For example, and you don't wanna be in a situation like that, right? Where we are hedging our future to these developments, so we have to push this stuff through. I think we wanna be smart in how we influence our fees in a way where we can really be strategic about investments and build. So I think that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Glover, you had something.
I was just gonna say, I was one of the voices that wanted this meeting, and really the way I was coming from it is the perspective of just periodically giving us a heads up of the catastrophe to come. I mean, like, I hate showing up, on day one in April, and it's like, hey, we have a $750,000 budget deficit to worry about. So just
Yeah,
kind
it's
of.
more like 1.4 now.
Well, yeah.
There's your heads up.
So I'm just saying that period
Yeah,
and kind of what do we really need to know before we try to make any more decisions?
Well, plus time for us to come up with some ideas.
Right, that was the
So that we
part.
actually have something meaningful to talk about during budget session, instead of just woe is me,
I think the public discussions this year were very helpful ahead of time too. And we should continue doing that. Even if I get kicked out because there are too many counselors there.
Sorry,
That's all right, that's the law.
I think I kicked you, Counselor Martin Willis.
Yes,
Counselor
you
Clark.
were
And
not.
then I
Yes, I
stood her up for dinner, so there you go.
yeah, no, I thought those meetings were really effective too, right, in terms of
If
just,
nothing else, it gives a voice to the public.
Yeah.
Whatever flavor it has. And having a set time to say, you have things to say, come down and say them, we'll try to impart information at the same time.
I have a question also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Didn't talk about it, but, there was an additional payment that I could make toward the water bill. As as a charitable or whatever, for the general fund, I believe, or does it go into the water fund?
so the donations that you're talking about the QR code that's.
Yeah.
So those drive people to our website and a page where they can select where they want to make those donations. So the amounts are not gonna, restore the general fund.
No.
But they are coming in, probably to the tune of $200-300 a month.
That's great.
Now, have we been able to switch that, because I know originally you couldn't select, You couldn't say I wanted to go to the library, it just had to go into the line item for all three.
General.
But all the line
I
items,
don't know.
Okay,
but all the line items are in the general fund, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I directed mine to community services.
But I have had some people ask, like, I wanna know if it's gonna go to the library or to the, how finite can we get that?
Well, the library and the museum are in the same department, so.
Right, yeah,
General fund.
yeah, but I have had some people say, I'm giving this money specifically because I wanna support the library, not necessarily parks.
And I think that distinction was made.
yeah, on the website. But,
Yes.
for a bit, and I don't know if it was
We're still
corrected.
trying to work out the accounting for that,
Right.
because there was a little bit of there was a miscommunication between the folks working on the website and those of us in accounting. So we're working on that.
And I don't know, I guess if they would prefer to give directly to, say, the museum rather than community services at large, there's always those friends of organizations that they can just give
Yeah,
to.
one thing that we actually had a discussion about.
We don't really want to turn down.
Well, to that point, we had a discussion about this at the last advocacy and promotion committee meeting between the library and museum. And one of them was, well, can we just put information about the societies like on that website, right? Like, in addition, if you wanna,
Right.
you could give to the nonprofits too, right? Because that goes directly to benefiting
There's
those.
gotta be some kind of conflict between city and 501(c)(3).
I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I would be comfortable with that. Would you be comfortable taking donations for 501(c) on the city's
Not
website?
forward, he's just saying a link to. those
Yeah.
benefits.
It's an information.
So we wouldn't take the
It's a
money,
link.
would just be information.
Just like it, for your information, these are the nonprofits for these groups.
But that whole,
I'm sorry, the Friends organizations can also make a donation in their own name to this community
Absolutely.
services fund, yeah.
Yeah.
oh, I like that.
Thank you, Councilor Fair, that's it.
They don't have a ton of money, that'd be crazy.
And we talked about that as well.
And the regular donation,
Mhm.
you know?
But that idea was floated at one of those sessions that, so that's why. Mayor, do you have a question?
Well, I think kind of going to the discussion of like fees, it does feel like in the moment when you're at the budget, it's like, hey, we've got to start talking about fees. It would be interesting to start researching like, what are some other fees that other communities are doing that we might be able to implement here that we're not already doing? There might not be some, but there might be some that are creative.
And we're capturing that information in our comparables, because
Oh, good.
we
yeah.
basically grab, for example, the master fee resolution from Silverton.
Yeah,
And if they have something that we don't have, she's capturing that in the matrix.
I want to be careful about how we do that. I think we all do in terms of like passing those fees on to residents. And even businesses or anything, but I think we do need to be creative about looking for those revenue sources, because even at one of the town halls, earlier that it's kind of like the state isn't coming to help us. Right, there's no money at the state, there's no money at the federal level, so it's really imperative that the cities are developing these revenue sources and looking at alternatives for that, whether that's economic development fees, et cetera, but you know, at what cost to our residents. So, but I do think it's helpful to look at what are other methods out there that we might be able to use.
So my latest idea is we take all the evidence in the evidence room upstairs and we sell it at a garage sale. Then we go out and arrest people and fine them for being in possession of.
You know, this is
stolen evidence.
recorded, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it was a joke, but it was a joke, but you just keep turning.
Thinking outside the box, there's an example.
So other cities have fees that we've seen, like there's sidewalk fees and there's street fees. I mean, there are fees for if, you know, some cities have between 6 and 10 different fees. Anywhere from $1 to, you know, $15, $20. So, but we'll capture them. Councilor Swartz.
So when you're looking at the fees, is there a way or do you have capacity to measure over time? So I think it's important for our residents to understand over time where our fees have been at. To kind of tell some of the story of why we need what we need.
You mean the fact we had no fees at all?
exactly. So right now, in my day job, the state passed this budget note and we're looking at all this data over time. To tell some stories about funding for higher education. And I think it's important that we do a similar thing for the city. Over time, there were decisions that were made to not make certain investments that have come to a point where we now need these investments in order to function. And I think that's part of the narrative that people still aren't fully grasping. And I don't wanna say it's residents' fault, I don't think it is. But there's still this communication barrier around that. They kind of just see us like, all of a sudden, we need this money, and they don't fully understand why. And it's partly because systemically for a long time, we made the intentional decision not to. For whether that be growth or whatever the mindset of the city was, that was the decision that was made.
Economic downturns.
Yeah, all of the above, right? So I don't wanna project blame on how we communicate this, but I do think it's an important part of this.
I worry that people are gonna say, well, isn't that convenient that you raise this, that you establish these fees because we have a $700,000 deficit? You couldn't find any other way to get the money, so you just decided to put it on the back of the consumer again. I don't think any of these methods that we've talked about are gonna raise that kind of money. I mean, the safety fee hasn't raised that kind of money. So we're back at maybe a levy. You know, I mean, a levy is the only thing that's gonna replace X amount of income, or revenue.
Levy, we can't, my perspective, so I'm gonna speak as just Evan, but I don't think we're there without more education to the.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
all of these narratives amount to a conversation with our community about why. But it also, the story of over time also tells the story of the fact that our growth in government is not actually been a thing in this city. So over 10-15 years, if you're looking at how we funded government, you're looking at positions, it's not. My understanding of the situation is we haven't dramatically grown the size of government independence over.
Yeah,
We've shrunk.
we have
And people, I feel like need,
Yeah.
that needs to be part of the conversation too, as other cities have grown in government, we've actually shrunk, and we're expecting our public servants to do more than others, of similar size, and you know, I appreciate in the town halls, the mayor and the city manager kind of had some of those comparisons with other communities, our size of budgets. But we're not actually talking about positions. And I think that would be helpful to
I
say.
completely agree with you, but how do we force that conversation? How do we get people engaged in that conversation? Nathan has the advocacy group into working on communication around levy.
I literally just said the answer over here to Mayor Kate, but no, so at the last committee meeting that we had about that, we've been batting around a lot of ideas about grants and legislative earmarks and stuff like that. But mostly towards the capital improvement idea or increasing the size of the library,
Right.
accommodate both of those, services in one building. And Mayor Kate was at the meeting, the last meeting with us, and we kind of all mutually came to the conclusion that to have a capital improvement as your kickoff campaign before you have an operational funding of those departments is a little bit cart before the horse. So the idea we settled on was forming some kind of a structural task force, to try and kick off a funding attempt for the levy, and I guess kind of in a political sense, right? Because
Communication.
the communicative. I don't know how you want to put it. It's just a combined team of everybody from the top down to whoever can add value added input to this effort as a task force that gets started.
But I think recognizing that we have Friends of the Library, Friends of the Museum. They're combining into sort of the, public service
Advisory boards.
advisory boards, but yet we have these groups and everyone's wanting to have action, right? And knows that this is a critical time, so how do we move forward, how do we start doing things? But we have to be really careful how we do that, because let's say somebody starts getting really successful with the capital improvement plan, like somebody makes a big donation, and then you go up to a levy, people are going, why are we in the levy? You just got a bunch of money that somebody gave you, so we really need to be thoughtful about, like Evan was saying, well, coordination, the storytelling of like, how and why we're doing this, and what are all the possibilities well in advance of, launching the levy.
Kind of need a road trip, kind of need.
Yeah.
to go
Yes,
on the
sure,
road and
yeah.
meet with beauty organizations about why this is a need.
And it has
not
to be
expect
deliberate.
People, right.
It
not
can't be
expect
reactive.
That people, you can't rely on staff. Cause A, they can't do that.
Right.
B, like they don't have the capacity to actually be intentional about showing up in the spaces where. Our community is to have these conversations.
Yeah. And you know, we've done just a little bit of research, very minimal amount of reading from people that have done these kind of campaigns over many years. It's not intuitive, the kind of communication strategies you need to kind of create to get a successful campaign. It's not like you don't really go after the users of the services. You have to go find the allies of the services, which don't always overlap.
They don't.
So it's not intuitive.
Alex, and then
Okay,
If you have more, I was mentioning the subject a little bit if you want.
okay, I was just gonna add on, we've been down the road of having a levy that's to build a facility and not having the levy, well, actually, we had it.
Got a bond.
We had a bond to build, to improve the library, to build a new one. And the bond was only for the, building itself. And then the next part of it, which was a 1-2 vote, was to staff it.
Right.
And 1 passed and 2 didn't, so 1 became moot. The other thing is, we're coming up quickly on the League of Oregon Cities. There is no better place to get information about what other cities are doing than to go to that conference and just talk with your neighbors from other cities. It's amazing what kind of good ideas come out of things. And you're not just going there to make an appearance or to attend 2 or 3 learning sessions. You're going there to rub elbows with other cities, and anybody who's had a success wants to talk about it. And then you need to borrow those good ideas, borrow them permanently.
To your point, I want to stay on the subject one more second.
I would,
Nathan, to your point, for instance, a school bond. The most reliable voters in school bonds are over 60. They're not in school, and it's probably the same for any particular type of levy. Going forward, we don't have the Shemeketa bond to worry about anymore, so that's good. Do you have any insight? I'm not asking you to repeat anything that's privileged information, but do you have any insight as to whether or not the school bond's gonna go, the school board's gonna go?
Have you not heard it?
Okay. Cause that's.
But I tend to not trust them after the last time around when we were told publicly, no bond, and then
Suddenly bond.
suddenly bond,
Yeah.
Because that would have affected my decision on going out for the levy.
Alex,
I was gonna ask, that's actually a pretty good segue. What just a textual piece from other cities or counties who are in also in dire straits. And I just remember from a couple years ago, like, I thought it was the impression that, I don't remember correctly, that they were in a really, they were gonna take financial plunge. And didn't pass funds and whatever else, but I'd be curious, what chatter you've heard, I guess, maybe from the building, but also maybe from just other cities about LLC, AOC, anything, just if you just bring us,
Pretty much every city except Woodburn.
yeah, that's what kind of.
I mean, we're all close to the same spot, it varies depending on how much debt you carry, where you are, your staffing levels, what you have for industry. And, but pretty much every city, we're all in a similar space, right? There are some cities that, they're looking at cutting critical staff now. Right, we have cut, I think all my staff are critical, right? But we haven't cut our costs yet. I mean, we've been understaffed in our police for a long time, and there are other cities that are becoming even more understaffed. And they're seeing the decrement. So they're really, I mean, Woodburn. So Woodburn is doing what I would really like to do here. So Woodburn, 20 years ago, they really took a hard look at industrial. And they have really focused on bringing industrial in. Now they're off I-5, that's easier, right? But we have 99. We do have some good, well, we can speak to industrial, we have some good industrial options. And they did that because industrial brings in jobs, it brings in 100% of the taxes. That would be a really great thing for us to do for the long term, right? That's why Woodburn looks really good. Scott is the city manager and
Has there ever been a study, I don't know what you would call it, what kind of study, or what sort of industry or commercial enterprises would work well for our demographic and for our geographic location? I mean, you have Woodburn, that major thoroughfare of I-5, right? 99 it's there, but it doesn't exactly get, tons of semi-truck traffic. What are we ideally placed for?
so I think I wish Sean were here, he could do a better job. Maybe Mayor Kate.
We have some, I don't know that the city has done some, but I know through like the Ford Family Foundation work through the Growing Rural Oregon program, we do have some reports, probably at a fairly high level of like, this is sort of the activity that has been seen in the area and what it's well positioned for. So there is some information. I mean, I can pull up those reports. There's no problem with that sharing.
It'd be
It's
interesting, yeah,
It
for
is.
like vision or, long-term
yeah.
plans.
I think Woodburn's a good example because they could do distribution services.
Right.
There's Wi-Fi, we can't do that.
Right.
So we'd have to get industry that is all self-contained.
Right.
I know IT is one that we've been looking at,
Right.
but
Data center.
Yeah.
Data center is one we've been looking at. I have part of Sean's assistant city manager role still involves economic development. And so, he's constantly looking for recruitments that will fit what we have. And we're doing some infrastructure improvement. So, our industrial is over off of Hope and Main. And so Representative Evans got us $2 million to fix that intersection so bigger vehicles can turn without stopping traffic.
Right.
So we are doing what we can. There's a section that could potentially be served by Monmouth Electric, which is clean, consistent electric. That would be a good data center location. So it's not so much that I'm aware of. And Alex, you
I
can
was
talk.
gonna say there's an EOA. I mean, as part of economic opportunity analysis, every city kind of takes a look with consultant at those target industries. There's not really like regional EOAs, they're very like city specific, like the Congress of people. So.
I would also push back on some of the, we can't do distribution because
well, we can, but not as readily as Woodburn can.
as I-5 property gets more and more expensive, we look more and more attractive, and the question is, where do people want to invest? Do they want to invest all their money in the property that they're putting their things on? Or are they investing in other parts of their, operations, right? I mean, the perfect example before everything fell apart with, the Oregon LCC was when they were looking at their warehouse, right? And it always felt fishy because it was like, you're spending how much on property to put a warehouse on that, like outside of Wilsonville, when if you go farther down and a little off I-5, it would be a fraction of that. I think those are the things that we should be positioned to talk about when it comes to certain infrastructure is like, what makes sense? How are you serving? Is it really worth an extra 30-40% to be in the metro area than around here? Those are the ways that I think we could be successful in certain distributions.
One of the things.
But it's strategic, right?
Right,
You have to
right.
be strategic.
One of the things that is right now limiting, but we are working on is water.
Yeah.
Right, a lot of the industrial, they're going to need more water than we can provide right now.
Right.
So once that water treatment plant is online, which we're hoping will be in the next 5 years. So it will take 3 to 5 to build a new facility. So the timing is about right, which is why we keep pushing forward on water treatment plant. So although we don't know fully which one to focus on, we've got 3 or 4 different focuses. Committee member that we are looking at and Sean is continuing to look at.
It's also worth noting that a lot of sites are privately held.
Yes.
And so you can only do so much, and so, and any kind of industrial property that you wanna develop in the valley, you have well ability, I mean, there's certain things you have to do, already, almost like infrastructure, even though it's not really considered that. Which costs money, and like, I mean, there's limited tools from the state to like help pay for those things, and so it's a little bit of chicken and egg
Right.
when it comes to that, and so it's one of those, constant, I would say, pushes and pulls from all this stuff, and so there are programs that exist. That if like it was a publicly held site, you know, you can get some help, but for privately held sites, there's really not a lot of programs. There's not a lot of tools for doing that. And I think, you know, we talk about in our office, you know, it's like the 20-year, 30th anniversary of industrial land constraint. And like it's a conversation that's constantly happening, but it's really hard to obviously get in and look to you. It's not long for the have, but it's hard to get
But
anywhere.
also, I think we can look at like the scale of our community,
Yeah.
can also build a niche that. Like a Woodburn can't, right, and so we've been doing some work around, you know, there's big gaps where it's like you either have to go. Really big or kind of medium, but there's nobody taking care of like that small scale, and so it's like, that's where. The city the size of Independence could step in and be like, we can take care of that size with the infrastructure that we have and the projected growth on that. And then fit a model into that, so it doesn't always have to be like really big industrial, but it could be harder to find that and fill that gap in there, that. There's a way that we can target that property to really fit our community well.
Lots of smalls is just as good as one big, you know, right, but right now, if we're talking, because that's down the road, obviously, this is not
Correct.
something we're gonna do tomorrow. So we're back to talking about a levy or fee or whatever, but so far, the only people who've been talking about the levy are community services folks, nobody from parks. And that's gonna have to be a big part of the conversation, so we need to start pulling those people in as well.
One of our discussions, those committee meetings, is that we are highly motivated citizen advocates, but we have very little political visibility and leverage.
Yeah.
And, you know, it really needs to start as a campaign for a levy sooner rather than later, if we're serious about it.
Yeah,
And
we
it's
only have
it's
9
gotta
months
come
till
from
May.
the top, yeah. Cause there's only so much that motivated individual community members can, you know, cold call legislators or grant providers, you know, it's a little bit more intensive than that. As you talked with last meeting.
Yeah.
We gotta have that vision, that plan.
Yeah. And I think that's, understanding what the ask is really important, I think in this case of. Cause right, if you go to a legislator, if you go somewhere, they're doing, what are you gonna, what's going, it's like, well, we just, right now, it's like, well, we just need the money.
Right.
We need money and it's, you know, it's please anything, you know, we gotta state the library and build it, you know, something with the museum, but having a much more clear, detailed, like. This is what we're going after, this is the vision, this is what we think it's gonna cost, this is kind of the phasing of it, it's gonna help.
This is how much we have so far,
Right,
right? We're not
And-
starting from zero.
and not just with potential funders that we're asking, but also the community to be able to, like, here's a clear vision versus. You know, we're short in the general fund, we need money to it.
Yeah, and time really is an issue for y'all,
It is.
because, I mean. The conversation that led to. You know, maintaining the library and the museum at some level this last year in the budget was. We need time to try it and put something else together. Well, that clock's ticking,
The campaign has to start now.
yeah.
Let's start.
Yeah, because I don't know that you can get through another fiscal year after this one without running dangerously short.
We already are dangerously short.
Well, yeah, I was trying to be nice.
Thanks. Well, as far as state funding, you're looking at the end of the 27 session or, I mean, any money that was out.
And federal's getting harder.
Well,
Okay,
okay, and
y'all are gonna cut,
and at least until
yeah,
the end of that
and
27
that's if we
session.
survive 6, cause they can cut what they've already given.
Right. I mean, that scenario is bleak as well, so. The state on the white horse is not going to ride in.
Those are realities to think about. And the realities to think about if we're talking about a real levy. Understanding that the people have to fundamentally believe that we've done what they've asked us to do before we go back and ask them.
Yeah.
And I have some concerns.
So what you're gonna,
about our ability to do that.
you're gonna draft the communications plan?
Well, I'd be interested in helping, but I have a lot of concerns about can't too quick to go zoom out.
Is there any way that we could give ourselves, and this is, nobody respect me, I'm just spitballing. Is there any way that we could give ourselves at least like one more year of breathing room before we go back to a levy based on the fee structures we're talking about, or something else?
Well, it's-
Because we're sitting at like
So.
less than 10 months for a whole campaign to get a levy passed, which is
So.
not enough time.
So fees, I mean, we did a public safety fee. I suppose there's the opportunity for the council, and this is on the council's back, right? And to all of the anger. If there is any, we'll focus on the council and the city organization. But you could do what might be. What might be.
Just say it.
You could do, we have a limited duration account, you could do a limited duration fee. 1 year, whatever amount it is, to get us that extra year. But, I mean, you know, there's good and bad to that, right? It would be a fee, you'd have to go through the council process. You'd have to tell us when to put it into effect, then we have to start collecting it. And it collects over time, but we could run the numbers, we could forecast it. We're gonna get 816,000 from public safety fee at $17 for the whole fiscal year. Is 816 enough to get us one more year, Rob? And will the community take that much more, $17, right?
Well, I think they're fees or the levy, right? I mean, it's.
Well, and let's say you go to the levy in May,
Right.
you're not gonna collect a dollar of that until the 26-27 fiscal year.
Right.
So you're already pushing. But,
I mean, we'd have to do
I
something.
mean, I'm not gonna stand here and tell you that you're gonna, you're gonna be flat broke, at the end of this fiscal year. But you're kind of broke now.
But the fuel lifeline.
Yeah.
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 But I mean, I have not seen, have you seen a limited duration fee? I don't know what I have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you could do a limited duration fee, which may be more palatable, but.
Because we're just being, go to the public.
How big a can is it? How far can you take it?
I know, and then like Council Broadway said, I think we're going
Well,
to twice.
but if I see you two nodding, and I think I know where you're going.
Well, you said,
You're going back over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of it is based on communication, right? Like
sure,
you were saying, Evan, like. You have to kind of craft the narrative. And not inauthentically either, like what if we say, well, this is maybe like a 3 or 4 phase master plan, right? So then it's predictable. We know if I'm a resident, I can predict, okay, I've seen this crazy cool plan they have and it's coming in this phase and this phase and this phase. And it's all deliberate, it's all intentional, it's not reactive, it's not like, oh, I gotta run back to the bank again, right?
Yeah, but the fee is $17 a month versus whatever the property tax increase would be, which, I think for my house was gonna be almost $500 increase for levy. I don't even wanna do the math on that, I'm just gonna guess, but $17 a month sounds a whole lot more palatable to me. And it may seem, it may sound more palatable, I don't think we can do a limited duration fee. I think we have to do either a permanent fee until we figure out some other revenue source, because if we're not gonna get the money till 2027, that's not gonna help us at all. Because if we push it off till November, that pushes it off further into the next fiscal year or fiscal year after that, maybe. I'm okay with the fee, but I understand where Evan's coming from. People need to understand what we've done to fix the problem you know, as it exists and why we got to this point in the first place.
And adding to that, I think there's so many other layers of conversations, right? There's the museum and library. So we can say this is how we got to where we got.
Yeah,
But
that's what
they're
I'm
gonna
talking
be
about.
like, there's also gonna be people that are like, well, what are you doing to bump up your revenue? So I think we need to be coming to the table saying, here's some other things that we've been doing to like, you know, make sure that we're increasing our tax base, we're recruiting businesses, we're doing our, you know, recruiting for our industrial land. But you're still gonna get the people that are like, well, what about our debt? What about this? What about that? So there's all these conversations that have to come together to make someone comfortable. I mean, you're gonna get people that are like, I'll vote for the museum or library no matter what, because I support it and I think it's important. I don't go through that, but
I don't think May it would pass. I think in November it would pass. I don't think it would pass. Just straight up, I don't think I don't think enough of the voting population votes in the main primaries
right.
for us to actually get there. And the people who inherently are gonna vote disproportionate will be opposed to elect. Just throwing it out.
I'm not hung up on May. I mean, I'm just saying, it doesn't matter if we do it in May or November, we're not gonna see that money in time to solve
I
our
hear you,
problem.
but I think you have to think straight. There are people now who said that we told people that the museum would close if this didn't pass. And the museum's not closing. I mean, the physical building is closing, but we still have a museum going into the
That's
library.
because
People,
it's a museum, right? Are you talking about
People
the
are-
building or are you talking about the
well,
department?
and that's the kind of thing people are gonna say is that we consistently are using fear tactics to force people
I
to pay
100%
more
agree with that.
tax
100%. It feels like a threat or extortion.
every single time, and I feel like
But I will say that I think most of the people are, when the museum is gone from that location, they'll be like, oh, the museum.
The
actually-
museum closed.
They're not
Yes,
gonna see that much of the museum collection in the library, frankly, I mean,
sure,
the majority of it's gonna be boxed away, so. I get what you're saying, yes, there has been this like, hey, if you don't do this, if it's gonna go away, and there is a. People do need to see some of that, and I do think the museum. Moving, closing the doors, unfortunately, will highlight that, and if that building does get sold, and helps us say, the building got sold. This is a benefit to the city because we took that money and did X, Y, Z with it. Maybe we sell a part parcel or two, they're gonna. If these things that they've been talking about, they're actually following through and they're doing.
I think that's part of this whole conversation, is that we're gonna have to make really difficult decisions to show the public that
We're doing what we said we.
we're doing, like, we weren't making things up. And that every decision we're gonna have to make until we get a levy is gonna be, what are we taking away from the community? Because there are people, and it's not an insignificant amount, who just think we're perpetually using scare tactics to get the big.
And then there's gonna be the quarter of people who say, you took the pool away, you didn't do any work to get the pool back. You know,
but I mean, realistically, not even a salvageable.
I know, I
project.
understand that, and it's maddening, but
Yes.
it is what it is, you know?
I just, there's a lot of work to do and not a lot of time.
I do say that doing it either in May or November, outside of an election, a major election cycle, is probably a better time to do it for political reasons.
But that's what he's disagreeing with.
Getting people to show up. At the polls.
Yes, you gotta get people to show up. If it's outside of a major election, depending on what it is, we might also have to pay for it. So there's that too, you gotta think about. Which then doesn't bring as much revenue,
And
right?
school bonds tend to do better in May. The school elections tend to happen in May.
It's because you get your property tax.
Yeah.
I have one separate question, sorry, to change the subject again. Is there any, ODOT's obviously the big topic for special session on Friday, the impact the city around with ODOT's like budget? I mean, I don't think there's past anything that come through here. I know just thinking about like 6-cent increase in gas tax and all the other things that the citizens are gonna feel, but is there city impact? Yes, or like up or down in that budget?
There could be,
Okay,
yeah.
I just don't know, I mean, sort of, it depends, a little bit, obviously, it's a. Yeah, but that's kind of curious.
Yeah, it's just gonna depend, right?
Yeah.
The original transportation package would have given us quite an increase, so we could actually do some things. But
But it's
restricted.
this is
Streets.
just streets, right? It's not general fund, this is
Yeah,
just
right.
streets.
Right.
And so we could have done a lot more work, maintenance on our roadways. The chatter I'm hearing is this is not going to be that transportation package. So if we can just maintain what we're getting, we would be happy. Okay, not happy, but we can continue to
Reasonably
patch.
content.
Yeah, I mean, we'll continue to cold patch and do what we can, but we will not be able. I don't have it with me, but I can send it. We did a full analysis and, you know, we're $700,000 short of what we need just to maintain our roadways. We're not gonna get 700,000 a year.
So back to Kathy's point that we gotta sell those properties.
The URA. Now remember, though,
One-time.
money,
Yeah.
it goes into the URA.
I'll be off.
I thought you said it could be.
It could
paid out of
be
the
used to
general
pay
fund.
down
Yeah.
debt to the city. And then it becomes unrestricted general fund money.
But it is one-time
It's
money
one-time.
and I just, you know, we have to really look at that. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
And if we sell it and it sits there
Mhm.
and no one does anything, then are we gonna be having the same conversation in 6, 8, 10 years? Because that's now no longer, they're not building, not developing, right? So I'm not saying this is just a conversation you're gonna have.
Yeah.
And I wanna make sure you see both sides.
And I think Sean will offer some good insight to that about when you have properties that are ready for development and bringing in a good developer that can create a good plan that's gonna help us back more in the long run. It may take a little bit longer to implement that, but it's a
Right.
better play than a quicker sale to bring some money in.
So with this, is this group? Can this group stomach a conversation about what the required functions of a city are versus what's not? I mean, like statutorily required. So when I was in my previous life, had a conversation with Curry County, and most of you are probably familiar with the financial problems in Curry County, right? I mean, they've been as close to insolvency as anybody. They were not willing to stomach that conversation. We told them, look, as a county in statute, you are required to do this and this and this. You're also doing this and this and this, which over time people have wanted. It's a service, people appreciate it. But you can't afford to do that. So if you just,
Libraries or.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, and if you just. We showed them a path to solvency based on that. Said, if you just stop doing these things over here, all hell's gonna break loose. But you can afford to do these things for a time and then build back your stability, and maybe then going forward, you can add back services as people are willing to fund them or pay for them. I mean, it's no different than really the conversation y'all are having, but putting it in stark terms. It was just a question that occurred to
Didn't
me.
we already-
It's really, this is your conversation. I'll leave it at that.
We didn't have that conversation, I know, because I took the brunt of it.
Yeah,
So,
I think there is a lot,
that's good.
Independence has worked really hard over the years, from the independence that it used to be, that nobody came downtown, nobody was investing in the community to what it is today, and a lot of that has to deal with Independence is a great community, you know, and we still, you know, every time I go to a conference or a meeting, oh my gosh, Independence, we love it. And there is that flip side, which I'm very, not being like, well, yeah, we're paying for it in some ways, but, so yes, I understand what you're saying about, there's the hard realities of like, we have to provide XYZ as a community, but then what is that community livability piece, and what is it that's going to attract employers that would maybe come to the area, so it's that catch-22 of like, well, if we stop investing in parks and libraries, and then we're trying to attract employers in the area, and they're like, what's the cultural scene like?
But respectfully, is that all on the city?
It may not be, and I agree with that, like, and I think that's what's prompting like indie days, where it's like, hey, why is it that independents didn't used to do this? And now it kind of fell on us to do it, I agree, taking a hard look at some of those things of, what are we funding and why are we funding that, but, there is also, I know from in this is probably gonna be one of the highlights of elected positions versus not, and I'm not trying to throw shade or anything, but we're the ones that our neighbors would come to and be like, hey, why is this shutting down? Why is the library not here? Why is this, like, what is happening to this community? I don't know that I wanna live here anymore. And then we've got a bigger problem, right? If people start leaving, the property values start going down, so it's a tough formula to try to crack, right? Of like, what's that balancing act? And I agree, things like indie days, at first I admit I was like, we can't lose indie days. And then after a while, it's like, wait a second, this used to be volunteer run. And the expectation of the community on like, hey, city with big pockets, we need to fund this. It's like, we don't have to.
And then, I mean, I don't have a problem having that, we've had that conversation,
Yeah.
that's what we talked about for 5 weeks last year, early this year, wherever it was. But, if we close the library, we close the museum and close our parks, we have to reconstitute them at some point in time if
Yeah.
people say they want, and that's gonna be a very difficult process too.
And we have good staff, if I may. We have really good staff.
Well, we do, and who knows what we get if we reconstitute.
You've gotta ask those questions.
But
Yeah.
Kenna, we've been saying the line for so long, staff is overworked, staff is, under-resourced, staff this, that, staff that. I can't believe we have a city planner. I can't believe that, that's just crazy, but,
Why did,
One, not two or three.
no, one, we
Yeah,
have a city planner, not
Yeah,
eight.
emphasis,
Yeah. We got Fred, but,
yeah, rare. I got you.
I don't know that I would be comfortable even looking at an organizational chart and say this and this, go. If you say it's not statutorily required. I think, we're the kind of community, I agree with Mayor Kate, I don't wanna live in a town that doesn't have library, I'll tell you that right now. That's just not gonna happen. And I think a lot of people feel that way, but we only have 3 options available to us. Do the fee, we can do the levy,
Or we can cut everything.
Huh?
Or we can cut everything.
or we cut everything, yeah.
Even if we cut everything except the police. I mean, everything.
We're still short.
We're still,
Everybody in this building out of a job except the cops. Problems go away, which means
Right.
structurally, it's not a
Yeah.
cut to make it problem.
Understood,
No,
understood.
if you cut library, parks, museum,
And the staff, everybody in here too.
just that much, crime's gonna go up. Because people are gonna be looking for something to do, particularly people who would do not legal things, but they are taking their time and doing other things.
Well, we can kiss tourism goodbye.
right.
Nobody's gonna come to our town if we don't have a museum or, it's frustrating because honestly, $700,000 isn't that much money. But to raise it means somebody's gotta pay extra. There's no way around it. I mean, I wish I had money, I'd give it to you, but
but isn't that number actually 1.4?
1.4, yeah, it's actually 1.4. But,
We would be having a different conversation if it wasn't like we already said. Every single city in Oregon except for Woodburn is in the exact same spot.
Right.
We're all playing a game by somebody else's rules and trying to figure out a way
I
through it.
know,
Correct.
It's not, this is
But
their.
those are the rules.
Yes, but we have no control over
but
it.
there's been some discussion about a library district. I mean, who funded the fire district for the fire department before they had a district? City?
Each city had their fire department.
Yeah.
And then they blended as a district.
But I mean, a district takes a while to get in
Yes.
place.
And remember, to get a district, the communities and the district has to vote in
Yeah, it's
a new
vote.
taxing jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get a levy passed, so we get
Yeah.
a district passed.
Yeah, because when you vote for a district, you're essentially voting for another tax.
And another government
So if
organization.
and there's no requirement that the city, so let's say the city that formed a library district or parks district. There's no requirement for the city to reduce its property tax amount by
Because there's
a like amount that's gained. I know communities have done that. You know, or met in the middle somewhere. I know when this Wasco Rural Fire District annexed the city of the Dalles for fire services to form Mid-Columbia Fire. The city reduced its tax, its permanent rate, or reduced its levy by a portion of that. Because it was what made it palatable to the community. City ended up coming out ahead on that deal because fire departments are expensive.
So the police departments.
Truth.
To see.
But that was also 30 years ago, so.
And we've already discussed
Things
working
have
the police departments, isn't gonna realize that much savings.
No, it's preliminary review, there's not gonna save enough. For the difficulty in moving and the time in trying to put them. Now, we have not done a deep dive. It's just preliminary.
So I think. Just as a kind of a. Not necessarily wrap up on the Parks Museum by any means, but it did broach the idea of like. At least looking at a task force for museum and library and levy and code court, we haven't had a chance to. City Manager Westside had a chance to kind of circle back to talk about that in Montecito, but we did bring up the idea of creating a task force that would help. Look at some of this, but we need to
I think,
stretch it out a little bit.
I think this time around, if we do a levy, I don't know if it's 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years. My personal opinion, the plan has to be pretty, maybe more broad facing in trying to really describe the fact that we're not just trying to save the library museum this time, but it does affect the entire general fund, which includes the police, right? The last time didn't go that far, it was just the.
I don't think we could make that argument a straight face, so we have a safety fee.
Right, but I'm saying, if all of these different ideas that we have, could they not all be part of one master plan?
The best ways I've seen taxes being approved is a dedicated avenue. It's a very narrow scope because people don't trust their elected officials to make these decisions. So my opinion is pick one and say, this is what the levy is going to. We figure it out, we make it scalable enough, or pick two, whatever. It says it's only going to these two things. And then we have to
Community
figure out,
services,
we have to figure out, we're saying, if we're talking about three things, we have to figure out which one not to, which I think we've all made that decision, right? So that, I think that's where you're gonna get some more buy-in and saves. But we have to make it very clear that it's not to a broad part of the budget, it's to this dedicated thing.
Right.
That's what makes it hard, because then it becomes restricted funds that.
Right.
Our team, it's like, well. Is that beneficial to us, so.
because the last one that we passed it was a 3-pronged. Wasn't it?
That was for bond,
It
right?
was a bond.
It was a bond.
2013, oh, I guess that was,
Yeah.
I believe, you could be wrong.
We have to-
Someone has a longer memory, but I don't believe we've passed a levy.
No.
no, it was a bond, and it was
Yeah.
2013, but I guess the point I was. Speaking for the general public, I'm not sure that they recognize the distinction.
Yeah, you're
But
right.
the
you're
point I was getting at was that was a 3-pronged.
right. It was a multi-use thing.
It
as far as the
wasn't
city
one
was
thing.
concerned.
Yeah, there
It
was
was-
water and it was general.
Yeah, it was to
fund.
shore up, deficits of various
Facilities.
funds, yeah.
Yeah, it was facilities,
Yeah.
cause it's,
Yeah.
bonds are restricted to capital.
Right.
So you have to build something with it. Can't use it for operating.
which is what the levy.
No, the point I'm trying to get at is the triple prong
I see.
versus
I would
a
say
single
that
direction.
politics-
That's where I'm trying to get.
Politics in America has fundamentally changed. Trusting government
Sure.
is fundamentally changed.
But we also specified like 3 distinct things. So I guess my point is, I don't know that we have to come down and say it is for the library.
Sure, I just think that the more broad you make it, the harder to set. Because people
Yes.
don't wanna give us the ability to dictate this, they wanna choose it themselves.
I think they'll want the details of why we're asking for what we're asking.
Well, and perhaps when the museum has moved out of Big Yellow Building. And in September, when they go to the library that one additional day a week that it's closed. There may start to be, you know, kind of as you mentioned, the recognition of, oh, they weren't kidding.
Right.
Well, the city hall is already closed today.
Yeah.
And library's closing in September.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is, as they start to see some of those cumulative effects, then this may, a levy at some point may become more palatable as they see the consequences of the last no vote.
That's part of it. So,
On those days that they're closed, if we put a sign that says due to budgetary constraints.
I saw the signs of their change. But that's not a stupid point, you know, we need, like Evan said, part of our communication plan needs to be, what have we done? We've cut hours here, we've cut hours there, we're looking at restructuring fees. You know, not that that's gonna bring in a ton of revenue, but we're doing things like that. I just think we need to settle on what our long-term plan is, whether it's gonna be the levy or whether it's gonna be a fee.
Well, and
Can they refer a short-term fee that gets signatures? Enough residents of Independence get signatures, let's say we approve it.
fee.
Yeah, let's say we approve a short-term, limited duration fee. The people of Independence can try to take it to the ballot and go to the ballot anyway, kind of similar to what happened in Salem.
I don't know the answer to that, Evan, but I think that is correct.
So I think that's an important thing that for
Or
council
Councilor.
and such to think about, right, is without involving people, they're gonna get involved anyway, like I guarantee it. So I think we gotta be really, really intentional about a fee conversation, if we're gonna go that way. Because likelihood it's
You
gonna
need
go
to leave,
to a
Brenda.
ballot vote.
He has another meeting. too.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
right, you gotta.
We've been friends with the library to go do.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, and you know, and the question,
Go friends.
Just ask them for a check, will you?
and the question, you know, always to keep in the back of the mind that Rob reminds me is, if the council moves towards a levy, what happens if this pass? What happens to what if it doesn't pass?
Yeah,
close everything.
you're pretty much out of options at that.
Yeah.
Just keep it in the back of the mind, right? Is there a backup plan? Is there a, what do we?
There's no easy solution.
I don't think the campaign for levy is unwinnable. It's just that we need a coherent plan starting like tomorrow. With a campaign of serious strategic thinking. And
So I have a bigger picture question. So all the other cities are dealing with the same issue. Is that collective voice being funneled to meetings like the League of Cities?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
So,
And it's like somebody
At some
said,
point
the
we're gonna have to make
legislature
a
starts
down
over, like every 4 years, so you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Every 4 years.
so we're lucky, we have a long-term representative. And he's very knowledgeable, and he understands, and he was a mayor, and he knows,
Yeah.
so talking to him is easy.
Which
a lot of, well, and he's great, I mean, cause so the LOC.
But what do you want him to do?
Right.
Cause one person can, and remember, the legislator that really starts to push for this constitutional, cause it is constitutional. They're not gonna be the legislator for much longer.
Yeah.
And so it has to be someone in the right place at the right time. Because losing a long-term legislator is very difficult for an area, right? They're very powerful, and for us, it would be devastating to lose our roads. Just tell you right now. But, upper level, yes. So the LOC, spent a lot of money to do to go out, to talk to different communities all throughout the state. And to take a look at what are people even going to accept. Didn't like sales tax, reset on sale, maybe. You're changing 5 and 50, not so much. Once they understood it, which took a lot of education. But we are seeing at the legislative level conversations, which is the first we've seen in ever. And this is incredible, but that's a really long term. I will be retired.
Turn slowly in.
I think it's important to note every time that I was in the legislature that a serious conversation Senate sale happened. First interest group that came in were realtors,
Yes,
and they shut it down
yes.
because realtors are. First of all, they're in every community, as you know, Bill.
They're awful.
I'm not saying that. They're in every community and their business is dramatically impacted by resets.
Aware.
Selfish state realtors.
So it feels like you're winding down a little, yeah. So we do have the Realtor RFP that went out. And we did get at least one response. I haven't seen it come out of it run. We're still looking at the response.
Saying you went out, like where did?
Oh, we posted on the website and
Our website.
and we send it to different realtors that we know work in the area. We send it out to as many, try and blanket. I don't know yet what that looks like. Sean is looking at that now. I don't know if we got one or if we got 5. If we just got one, we may look at resending it, adjusting and resending it so that we have 2 or 3 options. But we're moving forward on that realtor because we're going to have to move forward on the sale of the museum building to get it out from underneath that mortgage. So that's gonna be one of the first things that's gonna happen as soon as we get a realtor. And then it's gonna be the parks properties that we designated. And you will be hearing about that URA opportunity at the next work session. And I apologize again, it was gonna be this time tomorrow, but it just isn't gonna work out, so. We're moving forward in the direction that we were given. So we are Counselor Source, moving forward, and we're trying to tell the community, but we just, government is slow so that the community can comment, you know that. What would you like us to bring back for the next one? Do we need to have?
So what I heard
Yeah.
is so far is some market information, some economic dynamics, regional and state, history of fees over time, and a history of positions, services, revenue, expenses over time. Is that?
And I think we also need to, it sounded like, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe some information on what a fee would look like to fund.
A fee to fund community services? I didn't hear that, so.
Well, I thought I heard that from Councilor
Yeah.
Moore
It
with
was,
odds.
But temporary, whatever, limited duration.
Limited
Like a limited
duration.
duration
Yeah.
fee maybe until we get a levy passed, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Right.
And this isn't really this group's purview, but that, the idea of putting together that strategic kind of campaign team, the task force.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should really be doing that sooner or later. Even if the levy is for 2 years, gotta start it now.
And can we just confirm what the charter says the city must provide?
It's not so much the charter, it's statute.
Statute, yeah,
Okay,
we went over it.
Yeah.
because as far as I know, it's just
Police,
sewer, water.
police,
think you started. the
Water,
meeting.
yeah, police, water, sewer, streets. I think there's 6, fire. Can't remember them all, I'm sorry.
Storm drains are in with water
You see something,
or sewer.
I wanna say there's 6, but.
Yeah, I've gone down this.
But I
road.
think that would make a good base for knowing what we are committed to provide as a city. And then be able to discern and say, this is have to, this is not cut, this is have to.
But at what level?
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
We could have one cup.
yeah, there you go.
We have.
With one bullet.
Uh-huh.
Good.
That used to,
Check it till we got
you know, that ammunition used to be a line item on the budget. And that whole one bullet conversation did come up.
Don't we have to, like, cities over a certain size, you have to provide planning services, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it gets nuanced.
Yeah, there's more.
The planning services have to be available in the community, the city
Yeah.
does not have. to provide
Thank
them.
you, the
Right.
city was somehow then, because we just had this at a board meeting where it was like, hey, you can contract out those.
Yep.
Services, which you can, but at some point it's not.
Right. And usually that rule of thumb is about 10,000.
Yeah.
So we're like right there.
We're right there.
And
And the contracting and the main contractor is council of governments. And my prior city contractor with them. And they have some great planners and they have some good planners. So, and it's, I fought for a great planner, but everybody fought for the great. And pretty soon the great planner was so busy that the level of service, that great planner, not great, but only good, right? So they're the balancing.
Yeah.
And then the planner they're working for, say, 6 cities. And so they have to learn all of those different codes. And they have to almost relearn every time they come to your city. So if you're doing anything industrial, if you're doing anything with a lot of growth, which is why that 10,000 mark is usually where it is, it's really hard to climb. It's really hard. This city did try to contract with a private planning firm before I came, and that did not work very well.
Mhm.
What's the cost? Is the cost like $180 now?
I don't call what the cog is now,
Okay, I might.
but I
they
do
usually have a
know,
whole rate table.
Oh, maybe, yeah, it's probably okay. I know, sorry.
when they went with the private, the cost was exorbitant.
Yeah.
It is much less expensive to have private.
I think it's like the contracted services make sense if you're a
That's-
small city that needs sort of a finite amount of hours per week or month or something like that, then it probably still comes out ahead, but with the volume of work that we do here, I would imagine that it's cost effective for us to have our own. plan.
Especially looking for growth.
Yeah,
Yes.
longer term position in the city for that future.
And it's not just when people think of planning, now those of you who've been on the planning commission or the council, it's not just, hey, this development came in.
Right.
It is all the changes at the state telling us what we have to do to change our code. And we have to do that. And so that's what Fred monitors along with everything.
So and this is just a
Yeah.
curious question of mine. Is Fred a bottleneck to development here?
No,
So we're not losing out on development dollars because we can't meet the demand. Is that a correct statement?
I think that we are meeting the demand. I think if we had a ton of development come in, we would not meet the demand.
Right.
But this is really cool, and was it Councilor Morton, was it? No, it was Councilor Water. So what we're doing, and I think, Alex, you know about this, but Yamhill County had urban forum, and I really hated to leave Yamhill County because it wasn't here. What it is, basically they take every lot and they take all of the data for that lot and they put it on the internet, and so it's accessible to everybody. So you can go on your lot and you can see what your tax is, you can see if you're in the historic district, you can see if you can build, you can see all the stuff, all of our code, everything right there. And it will print a PDF, like 8 to 10 pages of all the things on your lot. So you don't have to call Fred. When you wake up at 2 in the morning and you think, dude, I'm gonna totally put a duplex on my lot. You can go in and you can click and it will say, hey, I can put a duplex on my lot. You don't have to wait until 8 o'clock to call Fred. It's
Sure. It's a code digitization
Yeah.
company, and so, yeah, it's a pretty neat project.
It's
Yamhill County is the first county, I think, in the country where all the communities have had their code digitized.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Polk County and Long Island and Fall City are working through the onboarding process, with the missing middle housing fund. Facility, but we have helped get a grant from the state to actually pay for education. That's awesome. So
And
it's
it's
a really, it's a
incredible.
cool project.
It's a cool
Yeah, I like,
project.
I like that.
And you said it's free to use,
Free.
Oh, yeah, for the end user,
and how about, and there's a grant that covers the
There's a
access?
grant for all of us to get our information on there.
because it's every city's code has to get, so
In the whole
Yeah.
county.
You were
It's-
describing
it's
that to me
on-
this morning, and it sounds
Fall City.
wonderful.
Oh, Yamhill County has all the, and I think the county too. No, I think it's cities. I don't know, is the county, Yamhill County also digitized and reformed like?
No,
that?
I think Canada County,
Unincorporated.
yeah, I think.
Okay, yeah, so Yamhill County has everything in one spot.
Mhm.
You will have at least around it, but
Right,
it's a good start to,
it's a good start,
it's a good start.
which is gonna help us, right, because the city that didn't join, well, that's not as easy. Until people wanna develop, it's easier to develop here.
Yeah.
Because you can find all the stuff. So,
And if you already live here and, we've been talking like infill standards and
Yes.
stuff like that, and planning commission, it's like, oh, what is possible, what could I
Yes.
do, and it gives you a pretty comprehensive sort of report.
and so those are the things that we're doing, so that there is no logjam, and so that you don't have to bring on another planner, right? We're making things more efficient, yeah. So, and those are the stories that are hard to tell too.
It's not really a sexy story, but it's
See,
good.
It's a good one.
If you're
But
planning-
in many ways, as counselors, that's our job. Because
Yeah.
now we're armed with that information, so if something comes up about, well, how come it's so hard, or how come it's so slow, or whatever, we can say, but wait.
It's coming.
So real quick too, other information that I think is important for future presentations to tell that story is also costs that were required to have because of the state, and not the services, but like PERS, benefits, those costs to stay competitive, I think is also part of that formula, cause we have to be in PERS, correct? We can't choose not to be in PERS.
Right.
We have to offer certain kinds of benefits as a city. Maybe.
Well, we have to
okay, be
make them
competitive at
available,
least.
we don't have to pay for them.
Right.
Currently, we pay for them.
You're saying
Be competitive, we
Yeah.
fully important.
we don't have,
There are not a lot of cities that offer 100% paid benefits.
Yes,
And
but there
then-
are a lot of cities that pay more money for
Under-
wages.
Understood.
So that's our
No, I
balance.
understand.
I
I'm
just wanna
just-
make sure that's clear,
Yeah, no, I got.
But
the
also,
whole picture.
because we
That there-
balance that.
are unionized sections of this city too, and you have to take that into account as
So-
well.
Correct.
what I'm getting at is, these are the things that people don't
They don't
fully
know.
understand as part of the education, we're making this information available, that these are costs we do not control.
And
They're controlled by the markets, they're controlled by the state of Oregon. They're controlled by external factors that if we choose not to play the game, we don't get quality staff. Which everyone wants their staff to be high quality, right? So.
when that 2013 levy came up, bond.
Get our verbiage right, right?
Yeah.
Nice, nicely done.
I did at that point do a significant amount of door-to-door stuff, and it's interesting what you are asked. Because nobody asked about, to me, or to the group I was in, not many people asked, what do I get for this? Instead, I was asked, what's this MyNet thing? And so I spent a lot of my time saying, this is what MyNet is, and the answer was always, really, I didn't know that, that sounds like a great deal. Well, guess what, you've already got it. But those are the things that really build cohesion in a community, when you do go out and talk to people and you answer their questions instead of trying to give them your information.
Well, I think Mayor Kate's town hall's great for that.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
and so I think continuing the work that the mayor has been doing in town halls by making this information as accessible as possible. So that whenever the great citizens that are gonna be knocking on doors are, they have that at their disposal to say, here are these dedicated. Funding sources that we have absolutely no control over, this is where some of those costs are. But if we don't do this, then you're not getting beat, right, you know? I think that's the other missing piece that we struggled with on the levy, cause I did not know the doors, the levy came over and over again with these people.
Could we have a mayor and councilor town hall?
Could we?
We half of us are there already, but.
No, cause we control how many go, so there's, we do notice it, but you're
I
right.
always show that.
No, we notice it, we're,
He sneaks in the back.
I'm teasing. That is, up to the mayor.
She'll kick you out.
There's no
if you
reason
go
we
over.
can't.
I'll play.
We just have to notice it.
Things to think about.
Here's my team, they're gonna be knocking on your doors.
Anything? So we're gonna add the things we just talked about. The additions to that were levy versus fee and what that looks like. Yeah. Anything else with this?
I'd just like to say thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I think this
Yes.
is well worth it. I think this type of kind of session, without having to make motions and all that other stuff, I think this was.
Yeah, it's helpful. It's a conversation.
Well, with that, I informally move on.
Thank you all.
All in favor?
This is really helpful.
Do you feel like